Hello and welcome to Model Kit Stuff, and this is a first impressions video of this brand new Airfix 172 Red Arrows Hawk. Now you might be thinking, really? Red Arrows starter set? Where's the news? Well, this is brand new tool. Not only that, it's a new concept. So let me take you through what Airfix are trying to do. So, like many model companies, Airfix has been asking itself the question for quite some time now: how do we get youngsters building model kits? So really what Airfix are trying to do is get modelers at an early age into the hobby so that they spend the rest of their natural lives building models. Brilliant idea. Great thing for people to do, for all the reasons that we all know. The problem has been modelling has become less attractive to the younger generation. So Airfix started with starter sets quite some time ago, and here is an aircraft here that my 8-year-old daughter Alice made from a starter set. And it says on most of Airfix's boxes for children aged 8 and upwards. And to prove a point, at 8 years old, she built this. So it can be done. The problem we've got is a lot of children who want to get these starter sets for Christmas presents and birthday presents, quite often have parents that don't model, and they find them a bit challenging because they've not got someone who can say, oh, you do this. So without having the skills, the starter sets are a bit of a challenge. So Airfix came up with this, the quick build. The idea basically being that kids will build this because it's a bit more fun and it's quick and it's easier, it's got no glue, it's got really no technical processes, it builds up a bit like Lego. The wheels work so they can then play with it afterwards. The markings are all stickers, so it's easy for them to put on. The problem is there is no logical progression from building that to building that. Also built by my 8-year-old daughter, I must add. So Airfix have been looking for something to bridge the gap between a quick build and a model kit. And they're pinning their hopes on this new concept. So let's have a look at it. So from the outside, it's not immediately obvious there's anything different. When you look a little bit more closely, you'll see it has a stand on it that's shaped like the BAE Hawk. So what they've done is they've designed a stand that's supposed to make it look like a shadow and that the thing's in flight. I think that's really nice. So we'll have a look at that in a minute in the box. Otherwise, you're getting the standard starter set box. It's telling you that you're getting paints. It's telling you that you're getting a brush and you're getting some tube glue. If we look on the top of the box, we can see you get one Airfix flying hour, and that it's a skill level 1, so entry level. Then we've got a side profile image of the aircraft in its familiar Red Arrows livery, and then you've got a little bit of history of the Red Arrows Hawk. On the side we've got the same information for shelf stacking, and on the other side it's exactly the same, so we don't have a book spine version. They're both landscape. And then we have the usual health and safety information, contact information on the side there, and then on the back we have the paint instructions. So it's a really cost-effective way of Airfix putting down simple instructions and minimising additional costs, so they put it in the print of the box rather than creating a separate sheet. So it's a really good idea, other than it's extended onto this bit, and in my experience with my daughters, this bit often gets damaged, starts flapping off, or they even rip it off because it's getting in the way, and you can lose that top section if you're not careful. Now that's a problem because it does have decal locations on here. So we've got the paint colours which are supplied in the set shouted out, so we've got black, white, some form of silver or aluminium, and then the red arrows red, and then in the boxes, the numbers in the boxes will be a decal, and then we've got the official licensed product holograph logo there. Okay, so the box is taped down at both ends. So we have a side opening box. Oh, I should say, it also says 8+ quite clearly on the front. So let's pull everything out. Yep, box is empty. So we have a decal sheet. Usual Airfix standard, as in very nice. There's not much carrier film on there. They're thin. It doesn't say the cartograph, but they often use cartographs, so it wouldn't surprise me if they weren't. And what you can see is there's something missing from some of these, and that's on the Union flag here. We've got the red missing. We'll have a look at why that is in a minute. Then we have a bag which contains our 4 acrylic paints, glue and a brush, which has a protective cap on it, and it is it's a number 2 size brush, and it's from their general enamel or acrylic brush range. Then we have a single bag with the plastic in and the instructions. Let's have a look at the instructions. Okay, so this is new. So let's have a look at that. So we've got a little leaflet here that says before you start. It's A4, single-sided, very colourful. Tools that may help you build the model. Nail file, tweezers, scissors, clippers, drill, tape, pegs. Well, I couldn't argue with any of that. Then what they've done is they've put some steps out. So first, wash all the parts with soapy water. I really like that. In fact, I want them to take that picture and put that as step 1 of every single instruction they ever produce, because so many people don't do that. I know someone's going to comment and say, oh, it's a load of rubbish, you don't need to do that. Yes, you do. Wash your parts. Number 2, look for frame letters and part numbers, so we can see that they have thought about entry level, how to interpret the instructions. They're not necessarily changing how they're manufacturing stuff here, but they're saying this is what you need to do. That's really nice. It's big words, it's nice and clear, it's simple. So for my 8-year-old daughter, she will take that in her stride. Her reading level is greater than that. So remember, we're looking at 8 years and above here. Use clippers to remove parts from the frames. Okay, so a new modeler might not be able to get that. If you look at all of these things that are listed here, I would suggest these 3 are the 3 that people wouldn't have to hand. In fact, you can nick all those off your mum. And the same with pegs. You know, whoever does the laundry in your house is going to have pegs. So then use a fine file to clean up rough edges. So it's showing you there a little nubs from where it was connected on the sprue and the bit of sprue gate that's left. Drill holes to fit if instructed. Brill. Hold small parts with tweezers. Brill, you can see what you're doing. Test fit parts before applying glue. That's one of those things you learn. You assume as a child that things will just go together. So the fact that they're telling you to do that is really important. I love it because how many times when we were first entering into this hobby did we put the glue all over it? Oh, it don't fit, and then you try and make it fit, and before you know it, you've got gluey fingerprints all over everything. That's great. So on the next step, it says, do not use too much glue. Well, it doesn't help that they're giving you that horrible stringy stuff in a tube. We really could do with some liquid poly be going in these bags by now, Mr. Airfix. However, I would say, although that's good advice, maybe the advice here should be decant some glue into a container and apply glue with a cocktail stick or something like that. Maybe you could put a glue applicator in your bag so that and a little pot made of plastic so they can decant some glue and use that. Just a thought. Step 9, clip or tape parts together while the glue dries. Again, great advice. Youngsters tend to put too much glue on, so there's a danger here that you're going to have glue oozing out of your gap, and then they're going to wrap tape around it and glue the tape to your model. So I'm a little cautious of that, but I see where they're coming from. Stir the paint thoroughly. So they're asking you to stir the paint. Maybe they should put a paint stirrer on their list of things you need, because if you're going to use paint, you need to stir it, and they're telling you to stir it. Just a thought. Paint small parts on the frame. Great advice, much easier to hold it. I do that, I'm sure many of you guys do that. It wouldn't necessarily occur to children because in step 3 they've been asked to take it off, but that's good advice. 12, allow time to dry between coats, and it gives you a time there, 2 hours between coats. Now obviously we all know that paint will be touch dry quicker than that, so there is a danger that you could put a second coat on and then you start loosening your paint and moving it around again, and it can make a bit of a mess. So I think that's really good advice. Cut out decals with scissors, not a knife, thank you. Thank you. Firstly, we don't want young children using knives any more than they need to, although it's a skill they need to come to grips with. And secondly, it's better to cut your decals out with scissors, because if you're getting close to your decal, you're not doing any damage to the decal. Hold the decal in warm water, 20 seconds. Okay, that works. So I have no issue with that. It's not the way I do it. It may be not the way many of you do it. But for a youngster, that gives them an idea. I think it will need a little bit longer than 20 seconds to loosen it. And then slide decal off the sheet onto the model. Well, what we will do is we will let Alice, my 8-year-old daughter, have a look at that, see if she can read it, see if she understands it, see if she has any questions. So we will get back to you on that, and we'll talk about that at the end of the video. But I really like what Airfix have done here. Before you start, that is great, and possibly would like to see maybe something like that in the start of all their instructions. Some of these could easily be lifted out and put into their standard instructions. Anyway, let's move on. Okay, so the instructions are their normal Airfix A4 stapled fold-out instructions. And even though we've had the before you start leaflet in there, it's still saying for best results, surfaces to be painted need to be cleaned, and additional paints may sometimes be required. Otherwise, you're getting a little bit of history and the warnings and a specification of the aircraft. So if you don't know anything about the BAE Systems Hawk, you can immerse yourself in the model you're building just that little bit deeper. Then as we turn over, we have some assembly instructions, and it says things like study the drawings and that type of stuff in there. And then we have a little shout out of the sprues that you're getting. So we're expecting 3 sprues. All of them are red, so that's new, and 1 clear sprue. And it's telling you the sprues are A, B, C and D. So you've got a reference there. If you can't see the letter on your sprue easily, you can easily cross-reference it. Then we're carrying on with a full colour set of instructions, so I like that. Now, if you remember in recent years, if you've not built an Airfix kit, they've started highlighting in red the last piece you put on, so you can see in the instructions what you've done. Here we have a slightly different approach. So it says here, glue in a triangle and do not glue in a triangle, options and paint colour. So I'm guessing the box will have the paint colour. So we're seeing some new logo imagery here. So we've not seen these in this format before. It tells you here that that's your part number. So in the circle you've got A1, and there where it says time 2, it's showing you that it repeats. So again, we can ask Alice, do you understand what all of this means? And this is be a nice little test. So it says practice assembling each part while looking at the drawing in each step before gluing any parts together. So it's told you that in the before you start, it's now telling you again. And then in this step 1 we have a sprue. So it's telling you the sprue, and can we see here in black? Now whether children would work that out, but it was instantly obvious to me. The parts that we're looking for, 14, 17 and 17, are those parts there, 14, 17, 17. Then we've got the new logo. It highlights in yellow the area where you're gluing. And then we've got a little box here which shows the paintbrush just to highlight the point that this is a paint instruction, and it gives you the paint number. Now, 64, which should be, there we have it, printed on the side of the bottle. Now my experience is these printed on numbers tend to rub off, so it's good to put a little label on it and write it on. So that's something I'll tell Alice, but again, you get that from experience. So I think that's really, really clear. So for a youngster, nice and easy. Step 2, again, it shows you the sprue. It highlights the parts in black. So in this case, it's everything on that sprue. And then we've got this part that you've just done, and it's showing you the yellow lines where to put glues. So on all those edges and on the location tabs. So if you've practiced putting them together, you shouldn't have any problems and you know exactly what to do. This could not be clearer. That is phenomenally good. Step 3, again, I think obviously we're going to get this sprue arrangement in every step, and I absolutely love it. I think it's brilliant because you don't have to go and cross-reference back. You don't even have to go and look through your sprues. You can look at what you're doing, grab the sprue, and you instantly know where you're going to. It makes it so much easier. It takes that frustration out of it. Brilliant. Again, we're showing it being glued together. I'm finding the red, I don't know, I'm finding, I think I'm so used to seeing this in a black and white line drawing that I'm finding the red a little strange. But if you've never built a model kit before, that's not going to be an issue for you. And obviously the parts that you're building are red, so that all looks exactly like the parts you're building. I'm sure Airfix will have done that deliberately. So then we step over to step 5. And what we can see is we are taking the tail parts off. So if we look at this, you can see the tail was already on. So they've simplified the design a little bit. Part count is lower, there's less construction. So they've thought about, what does the child need? The child needs to get from that to a finished model easily. They want to do it quickly, but not as quick as that, which they can build in about an hour. So there's a little bit of a challenge, like we were saying at the start of the video. We're trying to bridge that gap. So they've really thought about this. So we've now got the tail going on, and we've also got the last parts going on. And then they've put a little picture here which shows where those parts are, but for me that is not as clear because they're using reds. In the new Airfix instructions, they use red to show where it's gone. If they kept that and maybe this was in a light grey, that would perhaps stand out better. However, having said that, I instantly recognised what they were doing there, and you've got to remember, you're viewing this the right way around. I am not. There's also a little picture here of the back end which shows those tail fins pointing down. Now it doesn't say check that they're angled correctly, it implies it. Will an 8-year-old pick up on that? Be interesting to see. Step 6. So we've got 2 wing sections, and then we've got a little bit of text. Paint exterior colours after this step. See rear of pack for painting guide. So that's really good. They've pointed out when to do it, where to find the information. Brilliant. We've got some marks there, the little yellow marks showing you where to glue it. I really like that. I think that's so easy for them. And then we've got these location pins here which are going into there. So a simplified form of construction, but actually ending up with the same result. And you've got some nice detail, at least on the picture. We'll see if the part carries through with that. Step 7. So this is, okay, so this is undercarriage up. Now usually Airfix put a little silhouette in and do undercarriage up, undercarriage down. They've not done that here. What they've done is they've split this in two and put a question mark. I wonder if that question mark should be here, so it's right in the eye, right at the start of the step, because you could, if you're not careful and don't read your instructions through first, you could miss that, focus on this, glue that in, and then go, oh, I wanted my wheels down. So possibly that could do with being up here with the sprue and a question mark under it, so you know that this is an option. Just, it's a small point, but we're aiming this at kids, so they need to think about how a kid goes through it. And the kid is, and children will go through this in a logical manner. They're not going to flick through it and think like an adult. And in fairness, it's very difficult as an adult to think like a child. So they haven't given this a different step number. So step 7 is all of this. So if you don't want to have the wheels up and you want to have them down, you're doing this configuration here. And again, they've made it quite easy. So you've got the landing gear is a single part. It's got a little paint instruction there, and then you've got the undercarriage sections as all one piece. It sort of clips in. You still need to use glue, but it's simplified. I think it's really good. Then we go to step 8, and I'm going to just fold this over. So step 8 is basically the pilots and the canopy. So it says no glue on the canopy, so that's really good, because one of the issues, of course, is they've given you that tube glue, which is a gassing glue, and is a little bit difficult to put on. It's quite thick and blobby and stringy, and that could make this frost if you get any of that on. And children are highly likely to do that. So the fact that this is a clip-in part, I think, is genius. Then we've got the two pilots. We've got a little paint instruction there for it. White helmet, red coveralls, black boots. They do get glued in, and then you've got your finished part. Now obviously if that's clipping, it may be that clips off and you can have a look inside. Step 9, which is our last step, now deals with the stand. And it says, add decals at this stage, see rear of the pack for positions. So you're putting your decals on, and we can see now why the red is not on the decals, because the parts are red. So you've actually got an option to not paint this. You could build this, use the glue, maybe do the other bits and pieces painted, the tyres and so on and so forth, and not bother with all the red painting, because then you're not going to get all the brush strokes in. Or you could build it without paint at all. It gives the youngster some options, and I think that's really good. And I love the stand. What they've done with the stand is they've made it look like a silhouette. And obviously, they're not actually telling you to paint it here. And I think the stand appears to be red, but if you painted it black, it would look like a silhouette. And the stand fits into the tailpipe of the jet there. So it's a really good position. It says no glue, so guess what they're going to be able to do? Disconnect it, fly it around the room, put it back on at night time. Thumbs up, Airfix. You have really thought about this, and I think it's brilliant. But let's have a look at the plastic instructions. What I'm pleased to see is that the clear part has still been put in a clear bag, like they do with their other models, so that this is getting no scratches. So they're not treating the child with any less respect as a customer than they are for an adult modeler. And I think, again, Airfix are absolutely getting that right. Well done. So let's have a look at Sprue A. So we have the two fuselage halves here. Now, remembering that they've intentionally built this model for children to build, you've got some very nice detail on here. There's some lovely panel lines. We can see them in the light. The shape all looks right. Obviously, it's nice and crisp. This is a first pressing. This model is just hitting the high streets over the next few days. And then as we look inside, we can see the plastics actually are quite good thick plastic. So it's not going to be easily damaged. I mean, I can't squeeze that. I can't move that. It's going to take a little bit of rough and tumble. So again, Airfix have thought it through. Tiny hands, a little bit less sophistication in the motor skills. They've thought about what do we need to do. Fantastic. That all looks good. I'm not worried about ejector pin marks because kids aren't going to be painting the inside of that. Okay, that is Sprue A. Okay, this is Sprue B. We have the wing sections and tail sections on here and the little air scoops. Again, lots and lots of panel detail. And one thing that they want and make sure that they do is capture the imagination of the child for to make them want to build another one. Problem, of course, at the moment is they only have two out. They have this and they have a Spitfire. I'm not even sure if the Spitfire's been released yet. It might just be this. But the plan is a Spitfire's going to come out, and then there's going to be a double pack which has both the Spitfire and the Red Arrow. I'm sure over time we're going to see more and more of these in different types, tanks and stuff. And they should do a ship one. If you're listening, Airfix, you should do a ship. Okay, so there is some panel lines on this, and then you've got this lovely raised detail here that runs into the flaps. You've got panel lines on the tail, and you've got lots and lots of panel line detail, recessed and raised on the wings. On the inside, there is no ejector pin marks on visible surfaces, so that's going to look good. And you can see where these parts are going to clip together. As these are CAD designed, I'm imagining that the fit is going to be quite tight, which is one of my criticisms of this, that the tolerance is so tight that sometimes children really struggle to clip the parts together. So, very crisp, very nice. The gates are thin, so there's minimal cleanup for the kids to get stuck into, and they're also long enough to get those nippers in without causing any damage. So a nice sprue of parts there. Okay, Sprue C. So if we start here, we've got the pilot seats, and you know what? I've seen them do worse pilot seats in some of the series kits. They are basic and they are simplified, but they've got the shape. And bearing in mind the intention is that pilots go in there, they're going to look all right. Same with the landing gear. There is not a separate wheel and separate tyres and that sort of stuff. The count is low, but they've put the detail on here. They've put the little bolt heads on where things hinge. And if we flip it over, I can see the detail there in the hub and the rim and everything. The tyres aren't weighted, but it's designed to go on a stand, so you wouldn't expect them to be. Then when we've got the floor pan in the cockpit is very basic. There's no detail in there. Once you put the seat in and the pilot in, it's the pilot that's going to make that look busy. There's no dashboard or anything like that. It is simplified. But that's with intent. And you know, these parts, they're good and chunky and easy to handle. The pilots are very nice, actually. It's worth buying the kit just to swap the pilots out, or maybe one of your other 172 kits. They have not dumbed down the pilots at all. In fact, they looked quite dumbed down in the instructions, but in real life they're actually very nice. Then we've got the optional undercarriage up part and the undercarriage down part. Then we've got what would be the front wheel, which has got a bit of spring. It's oversized, but it looks the part. Importantly for the kids, it looks the part. And it's nice and chunky and sturdy. Actually, the plastic is very hard. It's much harder than the usual standard plastic. It's a toy-like plastic, so it's going to take a bit of battering. Then we have the two parts that make the stand. I love the shape. There is an ejector pin nub on there, so that needs cleaning. It looks like there was another one there that maybe come off, although there was nothing loose in the bag. And then you've got this base here, and it has two roundels on it which have the Airfix logo inside. Blooming lovely. Let's have a quick look at the clear part that's been provided as well. So we've got a bit of distortion, but it's not massive. Again, this is aimed at kids, so we're not too worried. We've got 3 ejector pin tabs that need to be removed. And we have the framing in place. So if you wanted to mask it and paint it, you could. Obviously, that's not really the intention here, but they have got it on there so it's visible. And then it has this heavy tab at the back, which is designed to slot into the finished model, which means that they can do a really neat job. Whether they're painting it or not, the canopy is not going to get any paint and it's not going to get any glue on it. So it's going to finish the model with something that they can be proud of. I think that's a genius idea, genius move, because they quite easily could have said, and then glue that on. I'm glad that they didn't. I think that's really... So there we have it, Airfix's brand new tool, new concept, RAF Red Arrows Hawk starter set. What do I think of it? My first impression is brilliant, 10 out of 10. Absolutely 10 out of 10. If you've got kids and you want to get them into modelling, buy one of these. I think they've thought it through and really not missed a trick here. You know, we noticed where possibly in the instructions where you'd put the options marker might be different. It's tiny stuff, tiny little niggles. It's almost spotting it for the sake of having to spot something. I think what Airfix have done here is they've really thought about what do youngsters need to build a model. And I think that is going to capture their imagination, and then when they've built that, they're going to want to build another one. And the problem Airfix is going to have right now is there is not enough of a range, and they need to get more of these out quite quickly. But the starter set logo and everything about it is no different. So there are other starter sets out there, like this was, that are actual genuine model kits. So you're going to have to be shopping around with a little bit of care. Look out for the little stand on the front. But I think that's brilliant. Of course, the real proof of a model is how well it builds. And the only way we're really going to know how an 8-year-old can deal with this model kit is if we get an 8-year-old to build it. Fortunately, I have one in the house. So look out for part 2 when Alice builds the new tool Red Arrow. I will see you then. Thanks for looking in. Stay safe, everyone, and I'll see you very soon.